How's it going, everybody? How's it going? I had made a video about entering prison, about what it was like to enter prison. So this is part two to that because, after you make a video, you realize that you left some significant and some important things out, and a lot of people had a lot of questions about what it's like to enter prison for the first time. So I figured I would explain a little more about how it works. I know a lot of guys. Let me say this first. I see guys make videos about prison and prison time. And some of these characters really amaze me. You know what I mean? You have guys making videos about prison and they got no shirt on and all their muscles popping out and they're steroided out and tattoos and they're screaming about the gang life in prison and all the different things. It's a little crazy. Some of them are a little ridiculous to me, but I had to live with those characters for many years. The people with the big mouths, who try to intimidate people or create fear in people. And when you try and scare someone about prison, uh, uh, the last thing they're doing is comprehending what you're trying to explain to them. And those guys that are trying to teach you about what it's like to be in prison, and they're showing you their muscles popping out and screaming and yelling. Those were not all of them, but those were the same characters that you heard the saying, "Bad boys move in silence." They don't need a big mouth. They don't need to flex their muscle. Those guys in prison that used to run their mouth all the time used to get their ass handed to them a great deal of the time. The muscle heads in prison, the guys that were huge and tremendous, I seen them stabbed in their throat and murdered in the yard because they thought they were big and they were going to run their mouth. You never know who you're messing with in prison. That's lesson one about entering prison. You never know who's who. You don't know what they're there for. You don't know their mind frame. You don't know how dangerous they are. To use an example like a John Gotti. If you didn't know who he was and you looked at him on the street, he was a quiet man. He was a well dressed man, and he was a ruthless man. And that goes for a lot of the real gangsters. They don't run around running their mouth. They don't have tattoos on their neck and on their face and yo, this that, all that crazy stuff. Half of those guys that used to be like that turned out to be the rats in prison, the one that used to snitch on people and run their mouth. So if you want to be educated about what it's like to go into the prison system, then listen to someone obviously who could explain it in an intellectual, intelligent way. You know what I mean? I always carried myself with humility as a very humble guy. And but so you wouldn't know that I was in prison for stabbing someone 81 times with a butcher knife, because I didn't run around like a maniac trying to act like a tough guy. I was myself. And for those that had to learn the hard way, they learned the hard way. You know what I mean? And so everyone has their own character. And so, but I laugh at watching some of these other characters. So when you get into the prison system, when you're arrested and you sit in the county jail, I'm going to explain a little bit of the process again. And you're in the county jail, and the judge sentences you, then you leave the county jail to go to prison. In New York, for example, you don't go straight to the prison you're going to go to. Like for me, I went to a facility called Downstate Correctional Facility, which is in like by Fishkill, New York, downstate New York, and that's a classification prison. And they moved me from the county jail to the classification prison. And in this classification prison, they do just that. They give you a classification on a number system, like level 1, 2, 3, to determine what prison you're going to be sent to. They'll see what vocational needs you have, what educational needs you have, the crime that you're incarcerated for, your criminal history. All these things are going to determine in the reception prison, in the classification prison, what prison you get sent to, to serve your time. And so that's the first thing that happens. When you leave, you can end up staying in this reception prison for anywhere for a day to a couple of months before they give you a classification and then move you to the prison you're going to. When you get to prison, your first day in prison, and you get there, they bring you into the reception area. Some of these things may be a little repetitive of what I explained in the first video, but they'll bring you into the reception area. And you're not bringing anything into prison with you. You're not bringing a phone book. You're not bringing personal clothes. When you go from the jail to the reception facility, you have nothing with you except your legal work. You're allowed to bring your legal work with you and a wedding band if you're legally married. Otherwise, nothing is coming with you. And you go into the prison to begin serving your time. When they walk you into that prison, you'll go right to the draft room. And the draft room is where they'll give you they'll give you your blanket, they'll give you your sheets, your socks, your underwear. Then they'll give you the clothes that you're gonna have, and that's really what you walk into prison with. Is nothing but what they issue you right there: a pair of state issued shoes, a pair of boots, and they'll bring you to your housing area. They'll give you a rule book. You get a rule book when you go in there. It explains the rules of the facility. It explains everything in the rule book. It explains about disciplinary procedures. It explains about how you could receive misbehavior reports. It'll explain how often you can do your laundry, how often you can make a phone call. It'll explain when you'll see your counselor and how to contact your counselor. So you'll be given a rule book that will explain these things to you. You have to sign for that rule book to show to show that you received it, and you'll be eventually taken to your area, to your cell. And character is important in prison. The way you carry yourself is very important. So when you walk into the facility, of course you'd be very scared. You're going to be intimidated. Most people are. They're nervous. They've never been in that situation before. They're afraid for their personal safety, most people. But as I said, it's not like the movies. Nobody's going to jump out of their way to just come get you. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that people there are what they call wolves in there. There are people that love to take advantage of other people. This is prison. You're going to have everything when you go into prison. People are not separated by crime. You'll have robbers and rapists and home invaders and murderers and DWI people, and they're all mixed together. Everybody's mixed together. You're not separated by crime. So you have scam artists there, drug addicts there, people who are homeless, people who are mentally ill. There's all that. That's what makes it a dangerous place, And so it's important the way you carry yourself, that when you walk into a facility, you keep your head up. You know what I mean? You keep your shoulders back. You sit up straight, because body language is read by everyone. You stand up straight, and people are always watching, and people are always looking. You know what I mean? There's no privacy in prison at all. And so when you walk in there, as scared as you are or as nervous as you are, you keep your head up and keep a straight face and keep your shoulders back. You know what I mean? And carry yourself like a man. That doesn't mean you have to walk with a swag like you see this, because when you see someone walking like that, the other guys will look at you and say, look at this fucking jerk off who walks like a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Just be normal and carry yourself. You don't have to act like a tough guy. Acting like a tough guy in prison will get you hurt, because there's a lot of people who are a lot tougher than you. And there's a lot of people who killed 4, 5, 6 people in there. You know what I mean? And so you would never know. You would never know that. By the time when you get in there, as I said, you're not going to have much, and it takes you time to get stuff. So, like, you might not get your first commissary buy for a month. But you go to commissary every 2 weeks, but you might not get your first buy for a month. So one of the important things that you can do as soon as you get to a prison is have your family or a friend send money to your inmate account. This way you have some money in your account to go shopping in the commissary and get some of the things you need. You'll also be able to see what personal items you're allowed to have, because in prison you're allowed to have personal sneakers, you're allowed to have personal sweatpants, personal hoodies, personal shirts. You're allowed to have hats and gloves from the street. Now, they can't just go to any store and send you these things. So there's approved vendors. They can go to these approved vendors. Be able to find out who these approved vendors are. They could go on the internet. You'll get that information and you can relay it on to your family, and they can order you these things, because sitting in prison is tough enough. But sitting in prison with nothing is even worse. When you don't have any food and you don't have any personal clothes, you're even allowed to get a personal blanket. You're allowed to get a clip on fan. The rules depend on what facility you're in, will determine what things you're allowed to have. But you want to get those things as soon as possible when you go into prison. So you carry yourself with your head up, your shoulders back, and don't be eager to make friends with people. I say this, don't be eager to make friends with people, because that shows that you're desperate. You know what I mean? And you don't want people to see that you're desperate. Just stay to yourself. And the two key words for anyone walking into prison is pay attention. Pay attention. Hopefully, hopefully you don't go into prison, but hopefully if you are going into prison, you had some street smarts. If you were a square, a normal person in society, and you got jammed up and you end up in prison, it's going to be a lot harder. But if you have those street smarts, you want to bring those street smarts with you into the facility, and you want to pay attention to everything and everyone, and you judge people. I want you to judge people. And what I mean by is you'll see the young kids who are wearing their pants off their ass and they got big mouths. And when you see someone like that, obviously, you know that this isn't a person that you want to vibe with real close because he's running around like a stupid kid. And if you run around with stupid kids in prison, you're going to get a lot of stupid problems. So you want to see who's carrying themselves correctly, who's carrying themselves like a man. The guys that are running around with the big mouth and all these people they call shot callers and this and that, we'll get to that later. You know what I mean? You're going to end up with people of your own race. You know what I mean? If you're a white guy and you get hanging out with all the Spanish guys, the white guys are going to look at you like, yo, what's the matter with this dude, right? And vice versa in any situation. People stick together in prison by race. That's really basically the way that it is. And you're going to fall into that situation when you go in there. But don't be eager to make too many friends. You know what I mean? You'll meet people along the way. And when people approach you, guys are going to approach you, and not in a bad way, but you have to read them. You have to become a psychologist when you go into prison, because you're going to be dealing with 2,000 different personalities. So when a guy comes up to you, hey, what's happening? Where'd you come from? What facility did you come from? This, that, yo, do you want anything to eat? You have to look at this person's intentions. You have to feel this person's intentions. You know what I mean? And if you do that, it goes a long way. We have what's called, they said we have the five senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, feeling, tasting. Well, there's a sixth sense. Everybody has a sixth sense. The human beings, we call it our gut. You know what I mean? I'll give an example. If you're walking at night and you see a dark alleyway and you want to take that dark alleyway because it's a shortcut, but something in your gut tells you, don't go down there. That's not your gut. That's your sixth sense. Human beings aren't in touch with their sixth sense too much anymore because it got watered down. You see, a dog is in touch with his sixth sense. See, an animal is in touch with his sixth sense. That's why I say a dog knows if he likes you right away, he can sense something in you. A wild animal can sense something, right? They are very in touch with their sixth sense because they don't have any communication skills. We have the communication skills, and we let our brain, our superior brain, talk us out of that sixth sense. Always follow that sixth sense. And what I mean by that is when you meet a guy in prison and you're talking to him and you're kicking it, if you have a sense that this guy is up to something, follow that. Yeah, no, don't take anything from him. You know what I mean? No, I'm okay. Don't worry about it. I'm good. This, that. He may try and keep being friends with you and approach you again next time the cell opens. Hey, if you need something to eat, you tell them, no, I'm all right, I'm good, even though you may need things if you get that bad vibe from them. But you'll get guys that are sincere in there as well, guys that are just good dudes. They're all good dudes in there. And when you feel that vibe from them, then you get closer to that person. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to judge people. Don't take things from people. When you go in there, don't take things from people. I used to take things from my boys in there all the time once I got to know them. And you can go to them. If I ran out of my chewing tobacco, I go to my friend, you'll give me a can of chewing tobacco. I'll get you next week. If I was cooking, let me get a couple of bags of macaroni. I ran out, but and because this was my friend who I trusted in there, and we became buddies, and then there's a back and forth. It's not one way. There's a back and forth, an even back and forth. You know what I mean? But it takes time a little bit to build that relationship and that feeling with someone, and you'll get that. But you got to stay away from the people you have a bad feeling for, because once they get you under the wing, they're going to try and keep you under the wing, and you don't want that, right? And so don't talk too much. Don't be eager to talk so much. Guys go in there and they want to talk and make friends. Talk and make friends. Stay a little quiet. Let people wonder a little bit, about about who you are. You don't just throw yourself out there and, this is my whole life story. Don't give people information like that. When you get comfortable with people and you have a little crew of guys that you're hanging out with, that's a different story. But don't run around looking to make friends with people. Prison isn't a place to just go run around and make friends. You're there to do your time as best as possible. Stay away from bad cases. And you know what I mean by a bad case? Someone who is a rapist, someone who is a child molester, someone who is had any type of sexual crime against a woman, against a minor. You can't deal with any of those people. I'll give you an example. When you go to when I go to prison, go to Attica. I'm sorry to say this, but I have to speak the truth. When you go to Attica, as prison is segregated, and you have the Jamaicans here and the Dominicans there, the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, the whites, everybody's separated, right? In Attica, the white guys check the paperwork to see why you're in prison. In other words, when you're a new white guy and you go to prison and you come out into the recreational yard and you go over to where all the white guys are, one of the guys or a few of the guys are going to tell you, listen, we need to see your indictment papers and find out why you're here before we allow you to come over here. You know what I mean? And so the guys with bad cases that had sexual cases, they'd be like, oh, my paperwork got lost. And then we would give them an address to the court and say, well, then right here, and the court will send you the papers within 5 business days free of charge. And so that when you get the papers, you can come back over here. And we would look to see if they were a snitch, if they were a rat, if they had a sexual case, if they had a case against a child. Most of the other races didn't do that anymore. You know what I mean? They were willing to accept anyone inside of their circles, which was crazy, because they just would accept anyone. We wouldn't accept anyone. You had to have a clean case to be in this crew right here. We had to know you were a good dude and that your crime wasn't fucked up, And so when you go, like I said, you'll have your paperwork. You don't want to mess with anyone. If we found out you had a bad case, then you would get mudded out. Means you would be treated like a mutt. You would be treated like a mongrel, right? Let's say we find out you're a rapist or a child molester. We tell you, don't come over here near our table no more. You're not allowed out here. Stay away from us. And then the guy would have to go walk the yard like a mutt, right? And then what would happen is the other races would see this white guy walk in the yard. They would realize he wasn't allowed near us. And one of the guys would come over and ask us, yo, Fish, what's up with that guy over there? I said, he's a rapist. He's a child molester. He's mudded out. And then that guy was thrown to the wolves, because he had a bad case. And they're either going to extort him. They're either going to beat him up. They're going to stab him. Mostly they try and take him for everything they can. I've seen guys extorted for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 where they get on the phone with the guy's family and say, listen, we have your son here. He's a fucking rapist. And you can call the facility if you want. But if you call the facility, he's going to get a knife in his fucking chest before you call the facility. You take money and send it to this address right here. And a lot of times the people would cave in and send the money. And then they would abuse the guy anyway. So fuck them guys with bad cases. But that's what happens to them. So you don't want to be near anyone with a case like that because nobody will deal with you. And why would you want to be near a guy like that anyway? So you bring your paperwork to the yard. The guys see. You don't have to be a tough guy. You just don't have to have a bad case. You don't have to be a fighter. You don't have to be a killer. As long as you don't have a bad case, the guys will bring you in and they'll take care of you. You don't have anything, they'll give you everything. The cruel guys will give you everything you need. Yo, here's a blanket, here's a fan, here's some food, from their heart, because you're one of them, and they'll take care of you. And that's the way it's supposed to be. I used to keep a setup under my bed. If a good white guy came into the prison, or a good dude came into the prison, I'd have a bag under my bed this way, because he might not get the commissary for a month. So all the guys would chip in and would create things to give them so they were comfortable for the first month that they were there. You know, uh, never, ever rat. Never tell on another prisoner. Things are going to happen in prison. And when an officer sees that you're new, and if he sees that even he thinks he can get information out of you, he'll try and get information. As an example, let's say there's a fight in prison. We'll make it even something simpler than that. Let's say there was a couple of food trays laying at the end of the company, and a couple of the prisoners took the trays. They weren't allowed to take them, and the officer is pissed off the trays are missing. You know what I mean? And he sees you and he grabs you. Hey, you see who grabbed those trays? And you have this instinct, oh, maybe it'll be nice. It'd be good for me if I tell the officer, what I saw. This way the officer does favors for me. If you do that, you'll be known as a rat for the rest of your time. And it doesn't matter that it's over a food tray. No matter what prison you go to, there's 60 prisons in New York State. The word will travel. That guy is a snitch. That guy is a rat. That guy is a piece of shit. You'll never be allowed near any of the crews to hang out with anyone. You won't be safe. You'll be treated like a piece of shit. Keep your mouth shut. You know what I mean? No matter what the situation is. All you got to do is tell the officer, listen, I don't give any information. It's none of my business. You get used to saying those words. None of my business. I'm just doing my time. You know what I mean? And if you do that, it goes a long way. The officers are going to respect it in the long run too, because nobody likes a rat. The officers don't like a rat. The prisoners don't like a rat. And what was crazy is what I discovered in prison is that it was the guys with the biggest fucking mouths, the guys that acted the toughest, the guys that would walk around the prison like they were fucking king shit and head honcho were fucking rats. It was crazy. It was crazy. You smoke a joint in prison, someone drops a note to the administration. Oh, he's getting high. They don't even have anything to gain. They ratted for no reason. They ratted because of the hate in their heart. You know what I mean? So I lived pretty good in prison because I had a few dollars. You know what I mean? And guys hate that when they see that. There was a tremendous amount of animosity. You know what I mean? Who is this guy to fucking live good in here? I don't have anything. A lot of them don't have anything. So they're like, I don't have anything. I don't have shit. And this guy's getting food packages. He's getting commissary. He's getting high. So they would drop notes and drop kites on you, the fucking haters, to try and get you jammed up. You know what I mean? And it would turn out to be the guys that would act tough, man. And so you don't want to be careful who you deal with. My thing was focus. You got to go in there and you got to do time. You got to focus on positive things. I focused on my education tremendously. Not for the first few years. For the first few years in there, I was young, I was lost, I was crazy, I was doing drugs, I was fighting like a maniac, but there was things that calmed me down. You know what I mean? When I got to Attica prison, I realized this was no joke. These guys in here were serving in Attica prison. 70% of the population may never go free. They're going to die in prison. They have nothing to lose. They have 50 years to life to serve. My buddy Haval, the Dominican, 50 to life to serve. My other buddy, 70 to life to serve. Vinny, 50 to life. My buddy Torpy, 25 to life. There was serious guys in there doing serious time. They had nothing to lose. And so you wanted to go in there, like I said, head up, shoulders back, stay quiet, mind your business, carry yourself like a man. You go in there, you go along with the process of the facility. You start getting your packages, get money in your account, start getting your commissary. You'll find a good job in there. The guys will tell you what good jobs are. You know what I mean? You may be a porter where you sweep and mop. You may work in the mess hall. You may work as a secretary in a certain area doing paperwork, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? But you'll find a job and you get with the routine of being in there. But you mind your business and you carry yourself like a man. Those are the two most important things, And even if you're not a fighter, even if you're not a tough guy, as long as you're not a snitch, you know what I mean? The other guys in there will look out for you. You know, there's a lot of guys that will look out for you. They won't let nothing happen to you as long as you're a good dude, you know, and you don't try to pretend to be something that you're not. You know, I found the game of handball in there. I had never played handball on the street. So every time I would go to the recreational yard, I would run to the handball court. I became one of the best handball players in the prison system. The guys, I would get off of a bus in a prison, and guys that didn't even know me would point their finger and be like, yo, you should see that guy play handball. I got addicted to it. But other guys go to the yard to sniff heroin. Other guys go out there to smoke weed. Other guys out there go out there to talk gangster shit. I used to go out and play handball or go into the weight pile, lift some weights, and go inside, eat healthy. You know what I mean? And when I went back into my cell, what I did was educate myself. I studied psychology. I studied human psychology, child psychology, abnormal behavior. You know, I studied a man named Viktor Frankl, you know what I mean, who invented something called logotherapy. You know, I tried to just understand why I was there and why I went wrong in my life, you know. And so I went in there without a GED. I earned my GED in there and then went to a secondary education. I studied political science. I studied religions because it was always a topic in prison. Guys were studying religions. I read the Bible 9 to 11 times while I was incarcerated. I had a lot of time. You know what I mean? But I used that time as wisely as I could. I got pen pals from all over the world, and I would write. Everyone said, Fish is in his cell typing. Fish is in his cell typing. You know, because a lot of my friends vanished. They turned out to be pieces of shit. Guys that I was very close with when I was on the street. Guys that I would do anything in the world for. You understand? Guys that they came to me if they needed money. They came to me if they needed a place to stay. They came to me if they needed someone to defend them. They came to me if they needed a ride across the country. And I was there for them. I was very loyal to my friends, the guys I grew up with. I was a little crazy, but I never hurt my friends. And I always took care of them. And when I went into prison, gone. Gone. Not only gone, they did things against me. Because now, yeah, human nature is something. Human nature is something. Out of sight, out of mind. You know, you'll get guys that try and sleep with your girlfriend after you leave. Guys try and sleep with your wife. You know, guys that are happy you're gone. So they, you know, it's crazy. And you thought these people were your friends. You know, so I had lived with a loyalty to people. And when I went in, they were gone. But then there was a few people that I really wasn't that close with that I just knew before I was incarcerated that stepped up to take care of me while I was incarcerated. You know what I mean? People showed me their true colors. I had a few true people that really looked out for me. But you'll go into the system, you'll see the counselor, and you'll get with the flow, and that's all you could really do. And hopefully you don't end up in there. I don't want anyone to end up in there. It's a terrible, depressing place. I always said it's like being trapped under a steel and brick umbrella. And at night, you feel like you're choking in silent pain as you're locked in that cell and you hear that door shut. And there's a lot of violence going on and a lot of shit going on, a lot of craziness going on. You got to stay away from all that. God forbid you're going in there. You stay away from all that and you just do your time. And then hopefully you'll be all right.